12 hours, and then the defense later on. Is going to be a lot of wrangling about how they get there.
Fox's Chad Pergram says the tussle over the rules will likely lead to a closed session Tuesday night. On Monday, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell proposed a timetable that could mean the trial will wrap up by the end of next week if senators don't allow new witnesses or evidence. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calls the plan a cover-up.
Senator McConnell's resolution states that key facts be delivered in the wee hours of the night, simply because he doesn't want the American people to hear them. Plain and simple.
Attorneys for the president say House Democrats are abusing the power of impeachment, trying to overturn the 2016 election and interfere with the 2020 election.
Fox's Jared Halpern. A former associate of President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, wants Attorney General Bill Barr to recuse himself from his trial. Lev Parnas is charged with violating U.S. election laws.
Parnas and his team want a special prosecutor at the helm, arguing that Attorney General Bill Barr is simply too close to the case. They sent a letter to the Attorney General, faxed it to him and his team at the Department of Justice. Technically, Barr oversees U.S. attorneys prosecuting Parnas. Parnas and his team believe that Barr is part of the president's impeachment probe and matters related to Ukraine. He cannot independently be effective.
Fox's David Spunt. And tragedy in Phoenix. Police are on the scene of a home where 3 children were declared dead Monday evening. At first, police thought the children had drowned, but have since retracted that. America's listening to Fox News.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is stirring up some of your favorite drinks all night long. Come down on Wednesday and Friday nights from 5:30 to 10 p.m. Indulge in some of your favorite local cuisine and pair it with your favorite drink. From our ice-cold beers, our finest selection of wines and liquors, to our top-notch cocktail specials, your friends at Mezcla Bistro Tumon are ready to serve you. Why limit happy to only an hour? The Mezcla family reminds everyone to drink responsibly. See you on Wednesday and Friday night.
The census begins Tuesday in Alaska.
U.S. Census Director Steve Dillingham spoke from Anchorage last week, explaining it's necessary in order to contact the many indigenous tribes and groups in the north of Alaska before the spring thaw begins, which would make it too hard to reach them.
The residents of Anchorage, Fairbanks, and the other relatively large cities here in Alaska will respond to the 2020 census online, by phone, or mail in mid-March with the rest of the country.
He says they are still going through the pool of potential census workers to hire, and they're asking for more applicants, saying this will be the biggest and potentially most complicated census count ever done. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
In suburban Salt Lake City, a candlelight vigil Monday night in memory of 4 people killed in a home Friday. Police say that a family member killed the mother and 3 teenagers and shot and wounded the father. Grantsville Police Sergeant Rhonda Fields.
Colin Haney, 50 years old, has since been released from the hospital, though has asked for privacy during this time.
The suspect's being held at a juvenile detention center and faces charges included aggravated homicide. Another week, another new top team in college hoops.
Baylor takes over the top spot in the new AP men's basketball poll released Monday, earning 33 first-place votes to leapfrog Gonzaga for the top seed. It's the 7th different #1 team this season, tying a poll record dating back to 1983. Kansas, San Diego State, and Florida State rounding out the top 5. Duke slipped down to 8th in the ranks following losses to Louisville and Clemson this past week, while Auburn dropped 12 spots to 16th. Iowa, Arizona, Rutgers, and Houston joining the poll this week, with Wichita State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Creighton exiting the top 25. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
Wall Street was closed for Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, but they will reopen Tuesday with the 3 major indexes at record highs. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
People come to Chili's for a million reasons. For happy hour, date night, birthdays, or just because it's Tuesday. But if you ask us what brings people into our restaurants time and time again, is that Chili's moment. You know the one. When you eat so much you want to fall asleep at the table, or when you meet up with good friends and it turns into a party. At Chili's, moments like these matter, and we want to make more of them. So there may be a million reasons to Chili's, but all you really need is one. Chili's, savor the moment in our new location in the Tumon Sands Plaza, 2nd floor.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, sir.
Good call, Real Joe Cruz. So here we are again, another episode of Tall Tales, the absolutely top-rated FM radio talk show, afternoon radio talk show in the Western Pacific, if not the entire Pacific. I think the results are still out there. I may have to refer that to the Tall Tales Think Tank Research and Statistics Bureau to work on the figures on that one, but I suspect that that's the case. So here we are, and as always, we'll start the program with Jemmy E. Cotney. Which I'm going to have to pull off my phone because I forgot to bring it. Give me just a second here, Real Joe Cruz, and I'll bring it up. Let's see. I'm only going to bring up the Post because I know what the Daily News is going to be anyhow. Here we go. Well, this is kind of embarrassing. I'm pulling a Daily News here. I don't even have the local editorial in front of me. I printed it out, but I forgot to put it in my folder this afternoon. So here I am trying to find it on my phone because I didn't even bring my iPad along today. I'm just really out of sync here today. Excuse me. All right, here we go.
Forgot your homework, huh?
I did, yeah.
It's okay. I'm guilty too.
You, Real Joe Cruz?
I always forget my homework.
All right, yeah, here we go. And this is right on point, too. How many mayors does Guam really need? And if Jimmy were here, what would he say? If Jimmy were here, he'd say, well, I can't answer that. It's a personnel matter.
Yeah, probably.
Do we need to maintain the current level of mayors and mayoral office staffers? Recent events surrounding mayors and mayors' offices have raised an old question of whether Guam needs 19 mayors and the current complement of mayor staffers. It points to the larger picture of the size of our government. During the emergency session on Friday, Speaker Talina Nelson raised a point any reasonable person would consider valid, considering the situation in Jonia, which hasn't had a mayor at the office since September. Are mayors needed? Senators, including Speaker Tina Munya Barnes and Senator Tello Taitigui, said the village isn't suffering for lack of mayor. Additionally, a volunteer municipal planning council is able to address issues at village level. Then recently, the Guam Daily Post found out that Agate Mayor Kevin Suswiku and 4 of his staffers took a trip to the Philippines. That's a lot of people to be out of an office at the same time. According to fiscal year 2019 fourth quarter staffing pattern, there are 14 people working at the office, including the mayor. That's more than 25% of the personnel out at the same time. There aren't many private sector offices that could afford to have that many people out at the same time. We would argue the government shouldn't be able to afford it either. Not while we're looking at a shortage of police and corrections officers. Our only public hospital is falling apart and lacks funding support. Our primary public health facility is closed, and it's unknown when it will reopen. And our education department doesn't have textbooks for all students to bring home and study. So Sweeku told the Post he and his 4 staffers used their own personal money for the airfare and accommodations on the nearly week-long trip to Buena Vista Town, Guimaras Island in the Philippines, about 300 miles from Manila, last week. He did acknowledge that they would still get paid on government time when in the Philippines. Kind of like when Tina Rose Munya Barnes went to Saipan, or wherever she went for the funeral. The Post asked the mayor if there were other priorities in his village he could have attended to instead of going on a trip. Of course there are other priorities, he said, but he also deemed it important to travel on government time to play the role of a VIP in a small foreign town. Everybody should get the opportunity to play the role of a VIP once in his life, even in a foreign town. Everyone's entitled to 15 minutes of fame. If the mayor and his staffers can be away from the village for that long, or if a mayor can be out of the office for months, and the villages are still intact when they come back, then the logical question that follows is whether all villages need mayors. As the community considers reducing the senators to part-time, perhaps we should also consider the mayoral positions and staff. We already combined several villages under one mayor, Tamuning, Tuman, and Harmon, which they now call Tutuha, or is it Tutuha, or is it Tutuha? I never know how to pronounce it. Tamuning, Tuman, and Harmon have one office. Mongmong, Toto, Mighty also fall under one mayor's office, as do Ordat and Chalanpago. Perhaps more villages can be combined. The smaller villages of South and Central Guam can be combined under the jurisdiction of 1 or 2 mayors for each region, and the savings from eliminating the positions of mayors in smaller villages can be used to boost the overwhelmed Dadido, Jigo, Tamuning, Tuman, Harmon mayor's offices. It's time to do this for the taxpayers' sake. There were well-meaning senators. There are well-meaning senators in the Guam legislature We encourage them to speak up and stand up for the people who are relying on them to do what is best for our island and all of its people. All of its people. Does that mean all of its people or just our people? What do you think, Real Joe Cruz?
I'm not sure, sir.
Yeah,
could be we, could be we.
Could be Hame, could be Hita.
Could be we or we.
Yeah, and if it were the governor, they would say, yeah. If it were the governor, they would say, our people, right? Okay, we got another Joe on the line already, Real Joe Cruz. I guess you've opened the Joe line. Well, of course, you are the Joe line, aren't you? All right, let me pull my phone over here. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Uncle Bob. Each mayor, there's a history. What's the word I'm looking for? Nuance. For each area has a specific need. For example, Agana really is comprised. The Agana mayor is really in charge of several. I don't know, technically maybe villages: Anigua, Hulali, Agana. I think there's several others I'm missing.
East Agana, West Agana, North Agana,
those are more
South Agana.
See, Agana Heights, for example, Agana Heights, these are really terms more in the Americanization after the Spanish-American War. They're older villages or pueblos that have specific, that were moved around. So
let me help you here. Let me help you here, another Joe. Before the war, there were villages, and each village was composed of barrios. So in Agana village, for instance, there was Barrio San Nicolas and 3 or 4 other barrios. But that really is not what we're talking about. I would speak ever so boldly and tell you that you could call Agana a hippopotamus, and it really wouldn't change things.
Well, no, actually, it has been changing, Uncle Bob, because there's less and less people in the Agana area. People have been moving out of Agana into other villages as their kids grew up and married. And so really, that's why if you look at the population of the number of voters in Agana, it's less and less for different reasons. You know, how much it costs to buy a lot in Agana, and you know,
I know that, but so Agana has less of a need for a mayor because fewer people.
No, I think it's evolving. There's constantly evolving. MTM, like that was mostly like farm area before the occupation, and afterward people started selling there more. Like for example, why is that the church technically in Mighty or Mongmong? They call it Mongmong Church, but so then where's Mighty? You know what I'm saying? It's the lines like gerrymandering. A lot. I guess some of Mighty might be in the middle of the road, so they're just things that people don't really look at as much, I guess. So it would really depend on each village mayor and the responsibilities as to how much they're worth, I would say. But as far as not having a mayor of the capital of the territory of Guam, I think that's a totally different situation. I think there might always be someone in charge. A need for someone in charge of the capital.
Well, you caught me on I guess an argumentative day here, another Joe. But you know, we were, as far as I know, probably the only jurisdiction under the American flag, which for years rented its congressional hall. Remember that? We rented a building for our legislature.
Yeah.
So you know what you're talking about is interesting, but I don't think it's hardly dispositive. The point here that the editorial is making is that obviously we have mayors that aren't really living up to their responsibilities, causing us to ask the question: do we really need all these mayors? I've asked the question myself. I don't even say do we need all these mayors. I ask the question: do we even need mayors? And how would things be different if we didn't have mayors?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think people are always looking to someone around who knows what's going on in the village, and so it's one aspect of. But actually, one of the reasons I called Kebab is I want to ask: can someone run for a partisan position, say senator, and change their affiliation? Say, for example, they run as a Democrat or Republican, and then they change to become an independent. Can they do that after they're elected, or is that frowned upon?
Well, after you're elected, you kind of are what you present yourself as, because the only time that there is a distinction amongst the parties is when you sign up for the primary election. But after the primary election is over, there really isn't much distinction. For instance, Will Castro ran as a Republican, but he's at least a fellow traveler with the Democrats anymore.
Well, so it really depends on how you vote, so to speak. How you vote determines who your affiliation is with. Then
how you vote and how you speak, and basically how you conduct yourself.
Yeah.
Now we have had a senator who was elected as a Democrat, and after the first year of his term, he publicly announced, "I am changing my party to Republican," and the Republicans allowed him to caucus with them, and that's the real test. That was Howard Trapp in the 14th Guam legislature. You younger folks wouldn't remember that because you probably weren't born at that time, but that's what happened.
So if the caucuses would determine whether you're up to their standards, so to speak.
Exactly.
In the political party.
Yeah.
And of course they also nudge you or try to persuade you to vote the way the party wants you to vote, which is kind of the issue nowadays. Is there's so much pressure from the parties, and people are wondering how would things get accomplished, or things that you brought up, or things that Ray has brought up. When I don't know if it's more of a partisanship with each political party, and so then there's a pressure against independents who would possibly not go with the party line, and take down that fence, or one of the several issues that you've brought up, the legal matters, and so to speak. If there were such a candidate that was more of an independent, would you volunteer your services in policy issues if it fits your standards?
You mean, in other words, to whisper in that independent candidate's ear? Is that what you're saying?
There you go.
Sure, of course I would. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so one last question: would you say that Dr. Guthers was she somewhat of an independent, or would you say she was basically Democrat?
I would say she was a Democrat.
Okay. Hey, thanks for your time, Uncle Bob, and I'll keep listening.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Another Joe. Okay, so we started out with Another Joe, and I stumbled through Jemmy Cotney today, and I have the blue pencil, and so I'm going to make a note on yesterday's copy of the editorial, and I am, of course, going to award the coveted Blue Star to the Post. That was an excellent editorial, and hit the nail right square on the head. Do we need all these mayors? I go one farther. Do we need any mayors at all? What is it that they do? We know what they won't do, and they aren't going to cut any grass at the schools. They're not going to go out and catch any stray dogs. They're not going to be writing citations for litterers. One mayor did, and it resulted in a conviction, but the other ones, so and then judging from my own mayor, I know one of the things he does goes on junkets to the Philippines, I guess, and that's the sine qua non of being a mayor to go to the Philippines and take an entourage with you. I think the mayor of Agate really set the tone here, taking 4 people along with him, all of whom were on the payroll during the time they were enjoying themselves in Tai City. So good editorial post. Let's go from there to the card. And this is what I've got on the card. I've got Anna Wanpat Bora versus the 35th Guam Legislature. I've got Terlahi versus Nelson. That's really a repeat. This whole matter of Bill 5, as you were 259. I've got Kevin Suswiku, Rudy Paco, and Rudy Montanani versus the mayors. I started on that yesterday, but it really ties in nicely with the editorial in today's post. And then I also have Titano versus Casil. And those of you who are wondering, there's nothing wrong with your radio. That isn't static. When you hear this sound, it's the way I give voice to a parenthesis mark on paper, because we have one senator who incorporates the parenthesis mark into her name, and that would be Kelly Marsh Titano. So rather than say parenthesis, close parenthesis, etc., I just use the sound whenever I refer to Senator Titano. So we've got Titano versus Casil, and some stuff that's been on the calendar for a while: Pito versus Pacell, Alvarez versus Anarchy, the Pope versus Trump, Antonio Gramsci versus y'all. So let's start out with Anna Wanpat Bora versus the 35th Guam Legislature. And Anna Wanpat Bora has come out very boldly and said, hey, you guys, you know that bill that you passed? Sorry, but it may very well be inorganic. Hate to tell you that, she said. Let's see here. Yeah, and let's see, I had the bill. I mean the law. Yeah, I have the bill here that the legislature passed. And Wanpat Bora says that the Organic Act gives the ability to the governor to appoint all officers in the executive branch. And I added to that, except were provided otherwise by the government of Guam, by the laws of Guam, or by federal laws. So she says that because the governor is not appointing the mayor in these vacancy situations, that it may be impinging on the governor's Organic Act authority. And I'm going to rule on that in a moment, but before I do that, I think it's necessary to go through the bill as enacted, if I have it. Yeah, I have it. I got it this morning. And Bill 259, and if you have the opportunity to look at it, it's been enrolled and it's been transmitted to the governor's office, but it's not generally available anywhere right now. But if one were to look at page 4 at section Section 2 of the bill, as you were page 3, it says, in the absence of a vice mayor, if a mayor is temporarily unable, as determined by the Municipal Planning Council of the affected municipality, to perform his or her duties. Now, this is some terrible drafting, isn't it? You can't say his or her duties, can you? Really? What are you supposed to say there?
Theirs and
their duties.
Theirs and days.
Yeah, their. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a break, and I'll come back here to the bill as passed.
We understand what matters to you because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, mom, dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So here we are again, working with Bill 259 as passed. Not Bill 259 as introduced by Talina Nelson, but Bill 259 is hijacked by Senator Pito Terlahi, who has jurisdiction over has the committee whose jurisdiction is the mayor's, from which he disqualified himself, recused himself quite a while back, as we were reminded by Ken Leon Guerrero, but still saw fit to take a real important part in the passage of 259. In fact, completely changing the bill. It's kind of like an old car that I had once upon a time, an old 1940 something or other, right? And it wasn't running very well, and I took it to the repair shop, and I said, "What do you think I should do?" And the guy in the repair shop said, "I'll tell you what, I've got a jack here. Let's jack up the radiator cap and drive another car under it, and then I think you're going to be fine." And that's kind of what Pito did with this bill. He jacked up the radiator cap and drove another bill under it and called it Bill 259. So here's a real key portion, Section 2 of Bill 259. In the absence of a vice mayor, if a mayor is temporarily unable to, as determined by the Municipal Planning Council, to perform their duties, I changed that, under 5 GCA 40112 for more than 30 consecutive calendar days. Can calendar days ever be anything but consecutive, real Joe Cruz?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Due to any circumstance not described in 13106. Well, 13106 is the laundry list. It says death, declaration of mental incompetence, resignation, refusal or failure to assume office, etc., a conviction of a felony or crime involving moral turpitude. There's a whole list of things that could cause the office to be declared vacant. But this is really important. If the mayor is temporarily unable, as determined by the Municipal Planning Council, to perform his duties for more than 30 days due to any circumstances not described in the laundry list, the council of the affected municipality shall appoint an acting mayor. Okay, so if it's not in the list, then on what basis does the council decide how to deal with a vacancy? And do you know what the answer to that is, real Joe Cruz?
No, sir.
Any way they want to, because the statute sets out no standards whatsoever. So if the mayor's council says the mayor is parking in the handicapped parking slot every day when he comes to work, since he's handicapped, obviously he's not doing his duties, we're declaring the office vacant. Or if the mayor comes to work, this is a hard one. You got to use your imagination here. If the mayor comes to work every day, that's a tough one right there, and spends a whole day watching TV, and the mayor's council says, when he's watching TV, his mind is somewhere else. Therefore, the office is vacant. We're going to choose an acting mayor. There is absolutely no restriction whatsoever on the mayor's council as to how they determine a vacancy in the office. Now, WANPAT didn't pick up on this, but to me, this is what we're dealing with. We are investing the mayor's council with a judicial function. Because they would be constituted as a tribunal of as many as 10 members, and the tribunal would try, not Tsogi, but try, as in a trial, the question of whether or not the office is vacant. And that's usually a job for the courts, or it can be the job for an administrative agency, provided that there are some standards that the agency must use in making the decisions, like the Civil Service Commission. The Civil Service Commission is a quasi-judicial agency, but the Civil Service Commission is not supposed to decide its cases depend on the basis of what makes a member of the commission's tummy warm or his anal sphincter tight. That's not supposed to be the ratio decidendi. But that's the way this bill is set up. So even if it's not infirm on the basis that WANPAT Boris suggests, I'm holding that it's infirm on this basis, because it gives so much power to this mayor's council without any standards whatsoever to guide it. And then the second infirmity I find is giving any power at all to the mayor's council. The mayor's council has the power to declare the vacancy and to appoint someone to fill the vacancy. And as a practical matter, the mayor's council isn't a whole lot different than the village bowling team. They're appointed by the mayor. They're appointed by the mayor. They have no official duties. Their only duties are to advise the mayor. They're not public officers. They're not held to the standard of being public officers. So I think that it's probably inorganic to give them what amounts to delegate to them what amounts to the sovereign power of the state, the ability to appoint a public officer. So I see these as two really serious problems with the statute. Of course, I'm not surprised because, we just kind of went in there and made it up as we went along, and it was so obvious that no one wanted to solve the real problem. The real problem was, of course, that the mayor of Jonia has been in jail since the middle of September, and no one wants to deal with that. Now, as far as the question that WANPAT Borak raises, in order to really answer that, someone would have to scrape the paint and varnish off this whole office of the mayor, because the governor does appoint everybody in the executive branch except as provided by the laws of Guam or the laws of the United States. There's nothing in the Organic Act that deals with mayors, nothing at all. As far as the Attorney General is concerned, the Organic Act says we can elect an Attorney General. As far as the auditor is concerned, the Organic Act says we can elect a public auditor. As far as the Board of Education is concerned, the Organic Act was amended to take the power away from the governor and give it to the government, but there's not a word in the Organic Act about the mayors. Now, if you were to go to the section of the law that deals with the duties of the mayor, it's quite an agglomeration, but one of the things that the mayors do They're peace officers. So they have the power of arrest. They're law enforcement officers. So if that's the case, then they're clearly executing an executive function. And if they're executing an executive function, then the laws of Guam would have to make it very clear that this is not something that devolves on the governor. But that's not the way the statute is set up. So I think there's a really good argument out there, if somebody wants to pursue it, that not only is the provision that says the mayor's council appoints inorganic, it could be that the whole mayor's setup, the way it's drafted right now, is inorganic. And it may be that in order for the Attorney General to answer the question, if the question is, can the mayor's council appoint an acting village mayor in derogation of the authority of the governor of Guam? If that's the question, then I think it may be necessary to go and examine the entire nature of the office of mayor. And it could go the other way. It could be that, no, we can't, under the current statutory scheme, we can't have mayors. And, of course, I think as far as the Post and I are concerned, no harm, no foul. We're not missing out on much of anything at all. But it's interesting that, and I tabbed this as, I put this on the card as Anawanpat Bora versus the 35th Guam Legislature. Because apparently Anawanpat Bora is running the office of unheeded advice at the legislature. Now, there's a question of timing. Question, I suppose, is what did Pito Terlahi know, and when did he know it? Or what did Talina Nelson know, and when did she know it? One would think that somewhere along the line, Council would have said, hey, Ms. Acting Speaker, there is a potential Organic Act problem with this. But if Anawanpat Bora is running the office of unheeded advice, it kind of doesn't matter. But when she comes out and says publicly, hey, you guys, you might have screwed up. You may have done something that's contrary to the Organic Act. The mental image that I have is Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Straw Man and the Cowardly Lion approaching the Wizard of Oz. And I can't remember which one asked the first question, or asked question. I think it was Dorothy, who said, you know, why can't you do that? And all kinds of explosions and steam and sparks and things like that on the screen. And the words were, you dare question the great Oz? That's kind of the mental image I have of Anawanpat Bora questioning the great Oz that is the 35th Guam Legislature. That's why I put it on the card that way. But if you want to question something, Anna, take a look at all of Section 2. Now, if Anna is questioning it, it kind of suggests that Legislative Council didn't draft this, that someone else must have drafted it other than Council. Because one would think that if Council drafted it, when the bill was presented to the person who requested it, Council would be duty-bound to say, this is the bill you asked for, caveat, it may very well be inorganic. Since that didn't happen, I guess Council didn't draft it. Now, this brings me to something else that I've been kvetching about since this legislature was sworn in. Section 6 of the bill is really dynamite. This act shall be effective upon enactment. Every bill is effective upon enactment. That's what the provision in Title I says. It's effective upon enactment. If the governor signs it, the bill becomes effective on midnight the day the governor signs. If the governor vetoes and the legislature overrides, it's midnight the day of the override. If the governor allows it to become law without her signature, it's midnight of the 10th day. You don't need to say this bill is effective upon enactment. But at least they left the silly separation as you were severability clause out. But I did a little research, and I found out why this nonsense appears in almost all of the bills that senators put together. And I've remarked more than once, if you want someone to look at your bill and say, someone who didn't know what he was doing drafted this bill, make sure you include a severability clause and an effective date clause. But I found out that the Rules Committee has circulated a template to the members, and part of that template is the severability clause and the effective date. So we got a real brain trust. We can't let senators make their own stupid mistakes. It has to be an institutional stupid mistake. Okay, I've got a Fred on the line. It's not the same Fred as yesterday, is it, real Joe Cruz? I hope not. I can't hear you.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right, good afternoon, Fred.
Hey, good afternoon. So I hear, we're talking about mayors, and just so you know, I drove past Jotnya and everything's fine. No issues.
Okay.
Everything's good.
No fires burning out of control. No piles of trash in the middle of the street.
No, the village is at peace.
You weren't
good.
You weren't chased out of town by a pack of wild dogs?
No, everything's good. Things are running fine. I don't think we need a mayor. Which brings me to the article in the Post today and so forth is, and New York City, 8-point-something million people and only one mayor, de Blasio.
Yeah.
One mayor for 8-point-some million people, and we have like 100 mayors for 150,000 people.
Yeah, I think New York City is
Do the math.
I think New York City is a little bit bigger than Homatic.
A tad bit.
Yeah, and
with
Pneumatic.
Some million people and one mayor.
And Homatic has a mayor, yeah.
And they got a governor and a mayor, and we have a governor, but we have like 30 mayors.
We've got 19 mayors. Well,
okay, great. We got 19. Wow. Do we need 19 mayors?
I don't think
New
so.
York can operate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple. That I rest my case, right? What else do you want to say?
You got it, Fred. You hit the nail right on the head.
Isn't that something to think about? Like I think we can, if we really need a mayor, one's good enough.
I agree, Fred.
And we can do without one and have the senators be appointed to run each village as well.
Well,
put one village under each senator.
I don't know about that. They are having a hard enough time running the legislature. Witness this bill that I've just been tearing to pieces here. But it's an interesting thought, Fred.
Okay, fine. We can have one mayor like New York City.
Okay.
Enough said, right?
Enough said, Fred. Thanks a lot for sharing
Something to think about.
Thanks for sharing your ideas.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so that was Fred. New York City, 8 million people, one mayor. Homatic, about what, 400 people, one mayor. But probably the mayor of Homatic works. Well, of course, with New York, they only got one mayor and they really got a dud, Bill de Blasio, whose real name is Wilhelm, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, but that's not ethnic enough for him, so he changed it to de Blasio. He took his mother's maiden name.
He should have used Beto.
Sí, Español, sí, Beto. Okay, so, and then here's somebody chimes in. Mayor of New York City barely does anything as well. De Blasio has been the do-nothing mayor. I think he got off, he's really been a do-nothing mayor. And in his case, maybe that's not so bad. You know, maybe the more he does, the worse it gets.
He doesn't bush cut Central Park?
He doesn't what?
He doesn't do any bush cutting in Central Park?
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He probably doesn't look for stray dogs in Central Park either. Okay, so we're up to that break up here before the big halftime show.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
Hi, welcome to this ad for new Subway sliders, starting at $1.99 each. How do you want it?
Cheer squad. Woo! Go Subway sliders starting at $1.99 each. Woo! Give me a ham and jack slider.
Ham and jack slider.
Give me an Italian spice slider.
Italian spice slider.
What's that spell?
It doesn't really spell anything.
New Subway sliders starting at $1.99 each. Go Sliders!
Subway, make it what you want. Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So back on the air again here at Tall Tales. Good afternoon to our radio listening audience, international radio listening audience again. Now we're going to talk about mayors a little bit, but I'm going to go into limericks for a moment. I'm going to reread yesterday's from Andrew. It's quite appropriate. There once was a quaint southern mayor who said this whole doggone thing isn't fair. His poll numbers stink as he sits in the clink. I've got friends in high places. Beware. And then on Senator Talina Nelson's bill, much to her dismay, Nelson's bill went away from a stealthy torpedo by Senator Pito. Yet there was nary a melee. True enough. Yeah, when Pito hijacked Nelson's bill, it was, well, okay, I guess it's a good idea. When everybody voted for it, no one threw a temper tantrum or a hissy fit, certainly not Talina Nelson. But I think I might have some insight on that. And, you know, yesterday I said, you know, the legislature, I'm stunned by their gullibility when they got a note from Lester Carlson saying there isn't any money for the recall or the special election. And I pointed out, there is always money. The legislature appropriates money. So sometimes they have to, you know, as we know from Kakigi's kerfuffle, sometimes they have to rob Peter to pay Paul and then find another lender. But there's always money, and I was surprised by their gullibility. But now I'm a little bit surprised by my own gullibility, and here's why. I looked at the committee report on Bill 259, and on the committee report, 8 senators, Joe San Augustine, Amanda Shelton, Regine Bisco-Lee, Kelly G. Marsh, Taitado, and Senator Clinton Rigel and Senator Pito Terlahi all voted to report out only. So on the committee report, a senator can vote do pass, do not pass, report out only, abstain, or place in the inactive file. And the bill, in order to hit the floor, has to get a majority of either pass or report out votes. But there was not a single to-pass vote on the committee report. Plus, Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes, William M. Castro, James C. Moylan, Louise B. Muñoz, and Therese Terlahi didn't even participate. They didn't make any of the choices. So what that tells me is that this bill after the public hearing had no support from the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 committee members. No support at all. So I've explained the concept of political cover before. I use the rather simplistic example of Santa Claus in the movie Miracle on 34th Street. And I've done it a couple of times. I'm not going to go through it again unless I get a heartfelt request. Bob, please tell us about Miracle on 34th Street. Then I'll do it again. Otherwise, no. But politicians are always searching for cover. In other words, they want to vote in such a manner that they get the result that they want, but they don't want to anger anyone on the other side of the vote. So political cover means some excuse for doing what you did other than, I'm just not going to do what you want me to do. So when Lester Carlson sent his note over and said, there's no money here, instant cover. So Talina could explain it to anybody. Yeah, you know, I was all for, she runs into some recall hawk like me or Ken. Talina, what happened to your recall bill? Oh, you know, I really wanted to push that through. I want the recall to happen, but you know, there's no money for it, so we couldn't do it. Cover. Or on the other side, somebody comes along and says, you know, I think that was just awful, the way you people wanted to recall the mayor of Jonia. Don't you know that everybody's innocent until he's proven guilty? And then Talina can say, yeah, you know, I agree with you 100%. That's why we didn't move forward on that bill. So that's political cover. So when Talina saw that her bill had no support whatsoever, then from then on, I don't know, I don't have any inside information here. I haven't even looked in my crystal ball. I'm just speculating. When Talina saw that her bill didn't have any support at all and at the committee level, she decided there's a clamor, you know, the editorial and the post editorial policy, the talk shows. A lot of people are saying, we got to recall that guy. He's guilty of not going to work. So Talina figured, I got to do something, but I need cover. So she goes through the song and dance with Tina Rose Munya Barnes about the special session, and Tina abdicates quite nicely. She did nothing, and she did it very well, as Chief Justice Rehnquist said. She did nothing, and she did it very well. So Talina steps in there and takes the bull by the horns, says, I'm calling a special session tomorrow to do with Bill 259. And then, as if by magic, Lester doesn't show up. He doesn't run the risk of some snotty reporter sticking a microphone in his face. He just sends a note over and says, there's no money for this. And everybody says, oh, gosh, we can't do this. There's no money for it. We have to stop dead in our tracks. But we did the right thing. We tried. We would have done it if there had been money there. All you recall hawks out there. Okay, I'm going to go look for a little cover myself here during the big halftime show that we have every afternoon at 1700. I'll be back in a few minutes.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The trial starts Tuesday. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. President Trump's impeachment trial gets underway in the Senate at 1 p.m. A member of the president's legal team, attorney Alan Dershowitz, argues the Senate should dismiss the articles of impeachment.
And obstruction of Congress is not an impeachable offense, and abuse of power is not an impeachable offense. So a motion to dismiss in a perfect world would be ideal, but do the American public want to see an end to the trial so quickly? I think that becomes a political issue.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell laid out a proposal for the trial rules, which the Senate will argue Tuesday. McConnell does not want witnesses or new evidence added, but the top Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, hopes to counter that.
Before the resolution is adopted, we will be able to introduce amendments, and we will introduce a whole series of amendments for witnesses, for documents, and other ways to straighten out what McConnell has done and make it a real trial with evidence, witnesses, and in ways that the American people can hear it.
The hearings may consist of grueling 12-hour sessions each day, 6 days a week. The man at the center of the storm won't be in Washington this week for the trial. President Trump left late Monday for Davos, Switzerland to attend the annual World Economic Forum. 3 children found dead at a home in Phoenix Monday night, but no word what happened.
Anytime you have 3 children, right, that are deceased, you know, you have to understand, we have to work our way through what that process means and why that happened. And so in that aspect, it's suspicious. Again, I just cannot tell you how, but we're going to work through that and hopefully get some answers to that.
Police Sergeant Mercedes Fortune says they see no obvious signs of trauma to the children ages 2 and 3 years old and 7 months. America's listening to Fox News.
Yikes, are those Christmas bills coming in already? Those high-interest credit cards at 16, 18, even 24%? Well, we have a New Year's solution for you. A Bank Pacific personal loan with rates as low as 4.65% to pay off those expensive credit cards. It's easy, it's fast, and it's as low as 4.65% APR.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal credit opportunity lender as low as 4.65%. Conditions apply.
Mesco Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel Tumon is now serving your favorite daily specials. Come one, come all. Enjoy your Monday with that savory garon pica. Your Tuesday with your one and only candied salmon. Stroll by on Wednesday to try that local style oxtail garu. Or Thursday if you're feeling that pan crisp pork belly served over roasted sweet potato mash. And don't forget that misoyaki black cod with garlic mashed potatoes on Fridays. Busy at work and still want your fix? Call us at 969-2652 for your takeout order.
A prominent newspaper announces its endorsement for the Democratic presidential race.
Senators Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar are the Democrats' best choices for president. That, according to the New York Times editorial board. A 2-candidate endorsement is unprecedented, but the Times editorial board argues the radical and the realist models warrant serious consideration at a time when, quote, there are legitimate questions about whether our democratic system is fundamentally broken. They say Warren and Klobuchar are the most effective advocates for each approach. When asked, regardless of who they plan to vote for, which candidate is best for rural Iowa, 29% said Klobuchar. Reporting in Des Moines, Iowa, I'm Ellison Barber, Fox News.
If you are considered low risk, then your visit to an airport may soon be streamlined.
It eliminates the need for passports or fingerprints. Customs and Border Protection rolling out facial recognition programs. It's called Global Entry, and it began at Orlando International Airport in June of 2018. It's now expanded to 14 airports. The streamlined process puts kiosks at ports of entry in which frequent travelers can scan their documents or passport and have their photos taken. The facial biometrics are saved by Homeland Security and matched against a gallery of images compiled by various CBP libraries. The biometrics are then used for future passenger confirmations and clearance. Kevin Battle, Fox News.
And flying in space, a pair of NASA astronauts wrap up the spacewalks to replace the batteries for the International Space Station.
It was NASA astronauts Jessica Meir and Christina Cook finishing installing batteries as part of a project to upgrade the station's solar power grid. This project began last fall and was the women's third spacewalk together. NASA has been gradually replacing the space station's aging nickel hydrogen batteries with more powerful lithium-ion batteries.
Fox's John Saucier, and a fourth person in China dies from the outbreak of a new coronavirus. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Want to grow your business? Start a new venture? Or stay ahead of the competition? You can. With Docomo Pacific Smart Business Solutions tailored to your specific needs and ambitions, you can do it all. Partner with a network with best-in-class network coverage, state-of-the-art communication platforms, and a team dedicated to providing you with premium support. Call 688-2677 to start your journey to success today. Docomo Pacific Business, delivering your future today.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Another great halftime show, another one that we hold every day at 1700, 5 o'clock here in Tall Tales. The marching bands, the cheerleaders, the synchronized card sections in the grandstand, the barrage of cannon fire at the end. It's really a great show. Before we broke for the show, I was talking about the Hadzi Mafababajo. No. Maybe I was the one that got fooled. Maybe I wasn't looking deeply enough at this to see that Lena really pulled off a coup here in such a manner that she satisfied the recall hawks but achieved some cover in the process. Well, if that's the case, it didn't work for me, because no senator should ever let another senator hijack a bill and then vote for the bill after it's been hijacked. And that's what you did, Talina. So even if you got your cover, you lost a lot of points on that one. You were working on establishing a particular rep in the legislature, but you really threw a lot of it away with that particular maneuver, whatever kind of maneuver it was. So of course, the conventional wisdom is that each village mayor is extremely politically powerful within his own village, that each mayor controls hundreds of votes within his own village because he's the mayor. So it's both definitive and prescriptive. The reason he's the mayor is because he has so much political support in the village, and his political supporters elect him. And then the reason that he has so much political support is because he's the mayor. So it's tautological, but that's the myth, or maybe it's not a myth, that most senators succumb to, that you cannot, no matter what, you cannot piss off the mayors if you want to be reelected. Now, if I had the time, I'd go back and dig through all of the bills that came along that tried to repeal the salary increases that were put in place by the great salary smash and grab of November 21, 2014. You'll remember that. That's when acting Governor Ray Tenorio, who was very quick on the draw that day, sent over a bill to increase the governor's, and several other salaries, including senators, by about 25 grand. So he sent it to the legislature and called the legislature into special session. So as I recall, they met around 10 o'clock in the morning, and less than a little over an hour later, they had passed that bill. No amendments whatsoever, so it could be quickly engrossed. It was sent to the acting governor the same day, and he signed it the same day. And the money was actually in senators' pockets in 24 days, even though that salary increase broke the Senate legislature's budget. But for some reason, the director of the Bureau of Budget and Management Research at the time didn't say, nope, you can't do that, there's no money. So they somehow wangled a way to pay those salary increases, even though it broke their budget for that year. After that, there were a lot of movements on the part of heroic senators to roll back those salaries, and there were a lot of different approaches. But one of the more clever approaches was to introduce a bill that would roll it back and include the mayor's salaries in that bill. And that, of course, was the poison pill. So a bill like that could get 7 votes, but it could never get a majority and never pass, because no one would have the temerity to take the mayors from $75,000 back to $45,000. So all the senators ultimately lost their big raises. The mayors kept theirs. Political commandment number 1 for senators, for our senators, thou shalt not piss off thy mayors. And it may very well be what we saw here, because Pito Terlahi, a former mayor himself, and by the way, Real Joe Cruz, you know of any other mayor that ever acceded to the position of senator? I'll tell you the answer.
I do not.
Francisco Santos.
Is that right?
Frank Santos, former mayor of Sinatna.
Oh, Frank Santos's father.
Yeah, Francis's father, yeah.
Francis's father,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He was actually not the mayor. He was the commissioner of Sinatna.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, and then he was elected to several terms in the legislature. So Pito Terlahi, a former mayor himself, former employer of Jesse Blas, the chairman of the committee that has jurisdiction over mayors, sent out signals all the way along. Don't horse around with this, you guys. The implicit message being, don't horse around with this, because it's going to cost you a lot if you do. Pito was the best friend of Jesse Blas. And now we have this, which it looks like a law school exam. How many issues can you find in this piece of legislation? How many different organic infirmities could you spot in the next 3 hours? Then the effect of this bill is this, that it empowers what I consider to be only a marginal government organization. We're not told, the statute doesn't even say that they can elect a chairman or do any of those kinds of things. They're just there, and they're to advise the governor, the mayor. So it's giving tremendous authority to a group that isn't even statutorily organized. I said earlier, it's like giving this power to the village bowling team. So, but what happened is, if this works, it protects Jesse Blas's job, because Jesse Blas appointed the mayors, and the mayors determine if the office is vacant. Well, first thing they have to do is nothing. Just never take the time to declare that the office is vacant, because they like Jesse Blas. And you know what, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Everybody is innocent until proven guilty.
True.
Yeah. Even if they never come to work. You can't fire somebody for not coming to work if he's in jail. If he just doesn't come to work because he stays home and watches TV, then you could fire him.
It's just a series of unfortunate events, sir.
Yeah. So if he just stayed home and watched TV and never came, you couldn't fire him then. But if he's actually been accused of a crime, been indicted for, you can't fire him then, because everybody's innocent until proven guilty. Ask the spokesman for the National Guard about the two sex offenders. Ask Ovita Nauta and Tony Lamarena, who took Ovita after she'd been indicted for stealing from the police department and then pled guilty at the Department of Corrections. Ask the Director of Public Health and Social Services, who kept 2 employees on for 2 years after it was determined that they had, after they'd been indicted for playing with the food stamp program. How about this? Ask the Chief of Police. The Chief of Police had a police officer who was involved in an automobile accident while he was off duty driving an official vehicle drunk. No, he was history right away. The chief said, we can't have that. We can't have cops using official vehicles for their own personal business. We can't have cops driving police cars drunk. We can't have police officers being arrested for DWI. You're out of here. Is that what he said? No. You know what he said, Real Joe Cruz?
It's under investigation.
I can't tell you. It's a personnel matter.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So finally, that police officer, Dennis Santos, finally pleads guilty and is sentenced to 6 days in jail, has to make restitution of $12,000, right? And do 100 hours of community service. And the chief says, we're going to do another internal affairs investigation on this. He should have been fired at the beginning.
Oh, you can't fire that guy, sir.
Why not?
He has rights.
Well, like what, Real Joe Cruz?
He has the GovGuam employee rights.
Yeah, the GovGuam Job Protection Plan. If you're accused of a crime, you cannot be fired.
Plus all that training and experience.
Yeah.
You want to lose all of that?
Yeah, dealing with drunk drivers. Yeah, good point. So here we have a situation, same thing, but we let this guy appoint basically his judge and jury, because it's the mayor's council that determines if the office is vacant. And he appointed them so they could say, we read the papers and we know that everybody is innocent until proven guilty, and he's working for the government of Guam, so we don't think the office is vacant. That's nice, Let's hope that this doesn't catch on, so that we don't let everybody who's a government employee appoint his own judge and jury to determine whether or not his office is vacant. Okay, so we saw, I'm going to study a little bit more to find out if it were the members of the legislature, especially Talina, that were so gullible, or maybe I'm going to have to take the hit myself. I saw it going on right in front of me. I've had enough experience to understand how senators can go about looking for cover. And perhaps that's exactly what we saw, an exercise to satisfy the recall hawks, but achieve enough cover so as to not piss off the mayor. So the recall hawks, maybe there are 100 recall hawks on the island, Real Joe Cruz. Guys like me and Ken are saying, yeah, the guy misses work. Let's get rid of him. Because he's in jail, let's get rid of him. Let's put somebody in there who can do the job. There may be 100 recall hawks. But at least in the senators' minds, there are thousands of people that support the mayors. And they're not going to take kindly to anyone doing something that a mayor would not be happy with. So I got a phone call here. This is another Joe again. Boy, that Joe line, another...
Familian again.
All right. Mr. Again, huh?
Familian.
Familian again, right? Not Agun, again.
Yeah, again.
Okay. Okay, another Joe. What can you tell me this time?
Well, Bob, isn't this position for mayor of Jonia up for, isn't there going to be an election, so to speak, this coming November for mayor of Jonia?
That's true.
So it's not like we're going to have to worry about it much longer. It's just another, 10 more months?
Yeah, it's only 10 months. What the heck?
But, yeah, like you said, it's a lot of money. It's not chump change, right? You do the math. But, I mean, it's just, unless they decide to re-elect him, who knows, right? But then, is he eligible to run again?
Yes, he is. Yeah, and he is. He's eligible to run again. I think the harder question is going to be, is he able to be a candidate while he's still in jail?
I think that's probably the question I was looking for. So, okay, Uncle Bob, we'll see. We'll see. They should probably make a drama, maybe like a mini series of this, or at least sell the plot to one of the soaps. I don't know if there's a soaps. They used to have a soaps for a mayor, but I don't think that's. I can't think of what the name of it was. Right now, it's just Parks and Recs, where there used to be soaps for a mayor. I think it was it Michael J. Fox or one of these other guys. Anyway, thanks for your time there, Uncle Bob. And
all right, another Joe.
Keep on top of it. Thanks.
Glad you like that Ferris wheel. So about writing a story, I know that Andrew is turning his hand to prose, and he's trying to put something together dealing with the Jonia mayor along the lines of the movie It's a Wonderful Life, which I'm sure you watched last Christmas, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But so far, he showed me a draft, and so far I'm cast as Potter. So I don't know if I'm going to approve that, Yeah. Okay, so staying with the mayors then, picking up where I left off yesterday with Kevin Suswiko, Rudy Paco, Jesse Blas, and Rudy Montanani versus the mayors. And my theory here is they're doing such a disgraceful job that they're making it hard on all of the other mayors, and they're feeding this idea. Perhaps we could give credit to Daryl Taggarty. The Jonia situation should be looked at as a test. Do we really need mayors? And we had Fred call in and say, everything in Jonia is fine. We've had Speaker Tina Rose Munya Barnes saying they're okay out there. Senator Tello Teitigui said they're okay out there. So we compare that with some of the shenanigans that mayors pull. And I started with Rudy Montanani yesterday. Rudy Montanani took a trip to attend the first Goodwill Friendship game to be held in Tai Rizal. Whoa, Real Joe Cruz. I didn't know you were that enthusiastic.
Big excitement, sir.
Yeah. And that was scheduled from January 16 to January 18, 2015. And he had the executive director, Angel Sablon, traveling with him, joining him at this prestigious ceremony, between our two sister cities. So it cost us $1,857.79 for Rudy's trip. And for Angel's trip, we got a little bit of a bargain on Angel's trip. His was only $1,804.39. So it cost us almost $3,700 to send these two guys to Tai, Philippines. And of course, they were both drawing their salaries for this whole time.
What village is he from?
Jigo.
Oh, why doesn't he become sister villages with Tamuning? He could just come down here.
Yeah, well, they couldn't do the junkets. Now, not only did he do that, and I saw the workup why he needed to have Angel Sablon staff him, you know. When a dignitary goes somewhere, he can't just be walking around by himself. He has to be staffed. So Rudy was staffed by none other than the director of the Mayor's Council. And I'm sure this made quite an impression on the people of Tai. So Rudy really capitalized on this. And when he came back, he did a spread in that part of the paper called Bayanihan. You've seen that part in the paper, right? It's kind of all things Filipino on Guam.
Yep.
So on the February 22, 2015 Bayanihan, here it is for all of you folks out there in Facebook land, you could see it. And the front page story, Guam signs twinning agreement with Tai. Wow. I can't tell you how overjoyed I was when I found out that we had an agreement would be sister, especially for Jigo. And the article says, on January 15, Jigo Mayor Rudy Matanani and Tai Mayor Janet De Leon Mercado signed the Sister Village Memorandum of Agreement in Tai. When I read this, Real Joe Cruz, I was fit to be tied. The twinning agreement encourages cooperation and friendship between Jigo and Tai, a village in the province of Rizal. Matanani said the agreement would work toward the growth of the youth. Yeah, and I guess that's why kids and the youth in Jigo are maybe 4 or 5 inches taller than the kids in Dedido. You get right up by the line, the line between the villages. The kids on the Jigo side are taller than the kids on the Dedido side because of this twinning agreement with Tai. Matanani said the agreement would work toward the growth of the youth. So that's what we got for the mayor of Jigo, off to Tai. Maybe next time he could run for the mayor of Tai. Okay, so that's Rudy Matanani up in Jigo. Then we have Kevin Suswico, and the editorial touched on it. Kevin Suswico and 4 of his office staff traveled to a remote town in the Philippines to attend a sailing festival last week and expected to stay there for nearly a week. The mayor and his office staffers wearing identical shirts with an agate Office of the Mayor logo.
Wow.
Yeah, they were suited up, right?
Yeah.
Were featured guests at a sailing festival in Buena Vista town, Guimaras province. The group arrived in the Philippines on January 16 and expects to remain there for the duration of the festival for another 2 or 3 days from Sunday, the mayor said by phone. Suswico said the cost of airfare and accommodations for him and his staffers came out of their personal pockets. The mayor did acknowledge he and his staffers submitted for administrative leave. Administrative leave. Maybe annual leave, but not administrative leave, which means their paychecks continue while on the trip. They should have checked with Speaker Barnes about how to do that. The mayor and his wife and several staffers were seen being greeted with leis as they arrived in town on a small boat. Oh, I'm so happy for them. Can you picture it? The mayor and 4 of his staffers wearing agate mayor T-shirts come putt-putting into shore and there is an entourage waiting on the shore to put leis around their neck. I imagine the folks in Agate were so proud. It took an international flight, a domestic flight, and a small motorized boat ride to get to the coastal town of Buena Vista on Guimaras Island, which has a population of a little more than 50,437 people. About 300 miles of land and sea separate the town and Metro Manila. The town isn't the demographic. Here's an understatement. The town isn't the demographic for Guam's largest tourist market, with a revenue of just $226,000. Okay, let's break for the seventh inning stretch here, and then we'll come back to what's Buena Vista Town.
Rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792. The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Restaurant in Hagåtña is closed for improvements and will reopen on the 27th of January. You can still get all your favorites at Mezcla Bistro in Tumon. Favorites like San Diego-style fish tacos, beer-battered tender fish fillets, stuffed in corn tortillas and topped with cilantro lime sour cream sauce, shredded cabbage and salsa fresca, served with a spicy roasted chili salsa for only $12.95. Try it today. Available in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
So here we are, Chicago, Wrigley Field, center field bleachers, and I'm going to use my magic carpet. Zip! And here I am back in Buena Vista Town in the Philippines, checking in with Mayor Kevin Susuico, the Susuico and the Four. Make a nice vocal group, wouldn't it, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, and then talking about the demographic there, the whole municipality apparently has a gross village product of $226,000, and just more than half its households are connected to electricity, according to its economic profile on the Philippine governor website. Now, here's the really key part of this, of Susuico's approach to this. Susuico said he found it offensive. He was offended. Offensive that the town's economic profile is mentioned in the context of his efforts to go on the trip to invite more tourists to visit Guam. He was offended just by saying, you know, these people don't have enough money to come to Guam, Mr. Mayor. And then he goes on to explain, he said, many from Guimaras have visited Guam to shop and attend Agate's Mango Festival because of a sister city relationship. This sister city ship, careful. The sister city stuff is really powerful. But, you know, instead of being sister cities with Buena Vista and Tai, why don't we try to be sister cities with Rome, London, Paris, Calcutta, some of these really big towns, if it means that, just because we're sister cities, we'll attract a lot of tourists from there. That's the implication here. He said many from Guimaras have visited Guam to shop and attend Agate's Mango Festival because of a sister city-ship relationship between the two locations since at least 2011. Wow, we're making big bucks off this. More from Guimaras will be attending when Agate hosts another Mango Festival in May. He said, adding the reward for tourism will be tenfold. Wow. He said tourists from Guimaras leave Guam with bags full of goods from shopping on Guam, and they stay in Guam hotels. He asked the Post if he needed to show receipts of the Guimaras residents' hotel stays. Now, why would he even have those? The Agate Mayor's office did file an expense report showing less than $200 of the mayor's fundraised funds were used last year to pay for the power bill of some guests from Guimaras who visited Agate and stayed in someone's home in the village. So we've got documentary proof that somebody from Guimaras came to Agate, stayed in a private home, and the mayor reimbursed somebody a couple $100 to pay for the power. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. I read this all in the paper. All right, and then of course another one on the list here. This is Rudy Montanani and Kevin Susuiko and Jesse Bloss. I think everyone is pretty familiar with Jesse Bloss's activities and the good name that he has spread for all of the mayors. You know, if Jesse Bloss is the face of the mayors of Guam, they got it made because he's a fine, upstanding mayor. Okay, and then we have another one here. This is Rudy Paco. Now, Rudy hasn't done any traveling or anything like that. He's figured a different kind of outrage. And I guess I got our Carl on the line. Our Carl, let me finish with Rudy Paco, and then we'll pick you up, and you can tell me your experience with the mayors. But here we go. Rudy Paco, mayor of Mongmong Totomighty, has received a copy of an anonymous letter seeking support for a petition to reverse the ban on cockfighting. Well, somebody knows how to do it. Somebody gave him an anonymous letter. If the letter had been signed, he wouldn't have even mentioned it to anybody. But he got an anonymous letter. That's about as important as he could get. He brought it to the mayor's council meeting last week to ask whether any other mayors have seen it. It's a petition an anonymous petition. We, the undersigned, 20 people who don't want our names to appear on the petition, hereby petition you. It's a petition to Acting Assistant Secretary for Insular Affairs, Doug Domenech, calling on him to do what he can to allow cockfighting to continue on Guam. Good for Mayor Paco. Mayor Paco, who is also a former cockfighter, said if the ban remains in place, cockfighting will go underground. Now, that's a nice thing for a public official to say, that if we don't change the law, people will go underground. So that's kind of a tacit way to say, all you guys that want to have your own backyard underground cockfights, everybody else is doing it, so I guess it must be okay. And the mayor also said he thinks it's unlikely. Now, this is the real key part here. The mayor said he thinks it's unlikely that anyone will come forward to collect the award the Animal Wellness Action is offering for tips on illegal cockfighting because their safety might be in jeopardy. If they stop the cockfighting, there's going to be a lot of illegal activity going around. Take, for example, this is a quote, the $2,500 reward. I don't think anybody would want to open their mouths about this because you don't get the reward until conviction. So what happens? They're going to call the individual up and say, hey, you need to report to the court because we need a witness. And that's going to put them at risk. Yes, sir. Risk, Paco said. So that's a wonderful thing for a public official to say. He's not threatening them, but I would say that what he's saying is inflammatory. So he said two things. He said there's going to be underground cockfighting, and he said anyone who gets involved with enforcing the law is not going to be safe. Nice talk. Kind of reminds me of the protection businesses that the mafia used to run in American cities back in the 1930s. You know, sir, that's a really nice plate glass picture window you have on the front of your store. Yes, it is. I represent the City Protection Service. We protect stores like yours. Would you like to hire us to protect your store? No, I don't think I need any protection. You know, that is really a nice window you have on the front of your store. It would really be a shame if someone threw a rock through it, wouldn't it? I don't think anybody would want to open their mouths about this because you don't get the reward until conviction. So what happens? They're going to call the individual up and say, hey, you need to report to court because we need a witness. And that's going to put them at risk. Yes, sir, risk, Paco said. So that's what 4 mayors have done for the reputation of mayors in general. Good job, mayors. Okay, our Carl, what can you tell me about your mayor?
I've actually got a question to ask you based on your...
You don't want to tell me about your mayor?
I don't really deal with the local mayor's office that often. I can't remember the last time I've been there, actually.
Your mayor is the president of the mayor's council, Carl.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what we call takido. But go ahead, ask your question.
Prestigious. Oh, by the way, in the spirit of all the anonymous letters, I think I'd like to recommend that you talk to Ray about installing some kind of voice distortion software, and that if we want to remain anonymous as callers, we just indicate anonymous, you know, when we talk to Real Joe, and then our voices can be distorted.
Yeah.
I think
I'd still know who you guys are.
Seriously.
The Real Joe Cruz says he would still know who you are. But
well, he wouldn't rat on us.
Real Joe Cruz, even if you know who the caller is, you better not expose them. You know why?
Why, sir?
You could put yourself at risk.
That's true.
At risk.
You're right, sir.
Yeah.
Very true.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what I'd like to ask you, Bob, is, you know, with all the controversy happening, you know, with this present legislature and the mayors, what would you picture if you had, you know, you were King Bob and you could pretty much design things any way you wanted? Would you know? Lee Weber recently wrote about districts, and I know the idea of districts has been batted around. You know, it would, if we could distribute the senators by district, at least the South would have, I think, more balanced representation. And there's also the idea of, you know, having the mayors set up as districts, maybe South, Central, and North, and share those resources as opposed to spreading them out all over the place. But how would you have it if you had your ideal Bob Klitzkie world?
Well, let me start out with districting for senators. We tried that once upon a time. And the idea was, that there would be a better spread of representatives. But the South had one representative for all the southern villages. So the same thing happened here as happened in the United States Congress. All of the senators came from the big towns.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had a couple of interesting cases where senators moved from one village to another. Because at one time, all of the really political, powerful guys were in Tamuning, so some had to move out of Tamuning. Kind of a reverse gerrymandering. But it didn't work well at all. One of the reasons was at that time we didn't have sharp enough census figures to break it down into single-member districts. I think with the census figures now are sharp enough so we could break it down into single-member districts. So what that would mean would be that if you lived in Dadido, let's say you lived on Lotta Court, one side of Lotta Court might want to elect one senator and the opposite side might elect somebody else. You'd break villages down into relatively small pieces. And that might not work so well because it would be difficult for a senator to say, a senator couldn't say, I represent Dadido. He'd say, I represent this little part of Dadido, or maybe this part of Dadido and a little bit of Jigo. That's the second problem with it. The third problem is that I don't know if the talent that we're looking for is equally distributed amongst the villages. Now, I know that's a really elitist thing to say, and that the populist way of looking at it is it's not about the talent of the members, it's about the people and representing the people. So if that's the key, then we do have Reynolds versus Sims and Baker versus Carr, the one man, one vote principle, so that the districts would have to be of approximately equal size. And it could very well be that in some of the rural districts, nobody'd even want to run for senator. Maybe not. But and then finally, this is a small island. So we don't have the same kind of parochial interests that we have here in many of the states. People who live in Jigo oftentimes work in Tamuning, and they're concerned about what goes on in Tamuning, or maybe more concerned than they are about what goes on in Jigo, because guess where the economic engine of the island is? It's in Tamuning. So I don't think districting for senators would work very well. It didn't work very well the first time, and I don't think it would work very well this time. As far as mayors are concerned, I don't know that we need any mayors if they are elected because, everybody says, well, what do? We know what they don't do. They don't cut the grass at the schools. They don't round up the stray dogs. They don't write out citations for litterers. They've got police power, but they don't want to use it because they don't want to piss off anybody who would be angry enough not to vote for them. So, as I understand it, the chief function of a mayor in a village is to be the link between the citizens in that village and the other parts of the government, the Department of Public Works, the hospital, rev tax, whatever. So that if you don't think you're getting the kind of service you need, you go to the mayor, and the mayor, for instance, the street in front of your house is full of potholes. Now, you really need an imagination for this one, Carl. You have to really be able to picture this. But let's say the street in front of your house has been full of potholes ever since. So you go to the mayor's office and you say, I want you to do something about this. And the mayor says, don't worry, I'll go down to the director of Public Works and I will pound on the table. I'll take my shoe off and pound it on his desk. I won't take no for an answer. I'll get that road fixed for you. That's my kind of idea of what the mayors do. They're the interface between Joe Q public and government officials. But I've never seen that. If I were to approach a mayor on something like that, like I approach a mayor and I said, you know, we really need a crosswalk across this street here in Jigo, the mayor would say, oh, that's not me, that's Public Works. So what vital function does a mayor really fulfill? They do a great job of escorting funerals to their villages. I'll give them that. And if there's if there's a matai, if there's a wake, they'll see to it that you get cascao. They won't deliver it themselves, but they'll see to it that you get it. But when you figure we're paying over $8 million for this, we're not getting much of a return on our money. And then we have the Commissioners' Council, which is a kind of a quasi-parliamentary body that, well, I got to take a short break, Carl. If you want to hang on, we'll wrap this up at the end of the show.
Y'all hang on.
All right.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his Smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his Smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Go green, go hybrid, go to Nanbo Insurance, and your next power bill is on us. Insure your hybrid car at Nanbo and get up to $350 towards your next power bill. That's instant savings for keeping our island clean and green. Nanbo has been providing Guam with over 50 years of reliable and affordable auto insurance. At Nanbo, it pays to go green. Terms and conditions apply. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for details.
Talk Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch. That means I've got about 8 more minutes to go to the end of another exciting, educational, elucidating episode of Tall Tales. I've got the real, as you were, I've got our Carl on hold, and just a moment ago, someone called in apparently to tell me I don't know Jack. So, Carl, with your leave, I'm going to entertain Jack briefly with the understanding, Jack, that we've got to wrap it up in time so that our Carl has the last word. Oh, our Carl hung up.
Well, sure. It's going to be real quick. Yes, I was hearing you speaking about the mayors and what their roles would be, and your understanding was there really the connection between the village residents and government agencies such as utilities and things like that. But also, since 2016, they came out with what they call the Guam Kemp, or the CEMP, the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plans that will deal with all sorts of emergencies that happen on the island. And in that plan, the mayors are listed as a vital link. I don't know if it's codified, but in that plan, they're listed as a vital link in obtaining logistics and making sure stuff gets out to the residents and things like that.
And this happened when, Jack?
Well, that plan came out in 2016, but
okay, Jack. So 2016, and I'm a really intelligent guy, and I follow government very closely, and I usually have a pretty good idea what's going on. I didn't know anything about it, so I kind of rest my case here on the mayors. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, but the reason why I brought it up is because I picked up the new phone book. I went to go register my car, and they had it out there and I just picked it up. It's very small, and in there they still have the core versus the conditions of readiness versus the what do you call it, the weather, the National Weather System or National Weather System alert. But for the life of me, I still don't understand what purpose core, why it even exists. But in the comprehensive emergency plan, they don't even mention it. They just go into typhoon warnings and the type of category. So everybody from the federal to to local will be on the same page. And so, and it's kind of toss-up because you saw what happened in Puerto Rico this past week, where they just went through another natural disaster in earthquakes, and they found a whole emergency supply left over from Typhoon Maria that was in the storage, Pampers, waters, food supplies, and stuff like that. And the residents of Puerto Rico are upset. They're up in arms for the lack of, response from their local government to the necessity of their people. And I think that's where I got to bow down to the mayors a little bit here, because it seems that in the times of crisis, the mayors that I come into relationship with, which was the mayor up in the Ganya Heights, the mayor here in Dedido. So, they've been like Johnny on the spot when it came to emergency or something that I needed done. So that's what I wanted to ring in about the mayors. I do agree with you that that some of them have taken this mayor thing a little bit too far, and especially when they said that they were going to cut back services if they didn't get their raise. I think that really went too far. But I hope that in your research on what really the mayors do, that the question is, it might not be in the Organic Act, it might not be in public law, but it seems to be embedded in other organizational charts that a lot of us might not be aware of. But the plan is called the Comprehensive Emergency Plan, and it was they printed out in 2016. They were supposed to do away with the core readiness garbage, but we're still in core. I guess we're still in core categorization just for the sake of government. The local government has nothing to do with the private sector. And, that's my take on it.
But 2016, Jack. And the plan came out in 2016. And it's the old, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it,
does it still matter?
So if it came out in 2016 and nobody knows about it, what good is it?
That's true. No, you're right, because it has a lot of wheels in it, and it requires an effort to. And this is the problem that we have. We don't really know these things until the emergency happens. So who's responsible for the shelters? Who calls in, or who's going to be responsible for turning schools into shelters? Who's the one's going to be responsible to make sure that violent criminals don't get into shelters in times of emergency? All this stuff. None of this stuff comes up until it happens. But the plan's out there, and I have no idea. I just looked at the new phone book, and we still have core versus the National Weather System, and it shouldn't be like that. We all should be on the same page. We all should be getting that text message from the president saying, "Hey, warheads coming your way," but we don't even have that. So I don't know, Bob. This is Guam, but I hope that these things get resolved, and I really like your approach of what exactly the mayor is and what's his functions. But I'm with you on this one.
Very good, Jack. Thanks a lot for calling.
Okay, have a great day.
Always good to talk to you. So I don't know jack about this emergency plan that came along in 2016. And if the mayors have a key role in it, wouldn't one think that the first thing that the mayors would do would make the citizens in their village, in their villages, aware of this plan? But if the mayor of Jigo or if the mayor of Vigo had the same thing as happened in the mayor of Jonia, I wouldn't even know it. I wouldn't even know that he was gone. Okay, so another exciting episode of Tall Tales comes to an end. Have no fear, we'll be back tomorrow. The real Joe Cruz and I will be back here tomorrow at 1600. So adios, amigos.